Earthquakes by Seymour Simon. The earth beneath our feet usually feels solid and firm, yet 1,000,000 times each year, an average of once every 30 seconds, somewhere around the world the ground shakes and sways. We call this an earthquake. Most earthquakes are too small to be noticed by people. Only sensitive scientific instruments record their passage. But hundreds of earthquakes every year are strong enough to change the face of the land. A large earthquake in Kobe, Japan in 1995 toppled this freeway onto its side and cracked the roadway in numerous places. This picture is an example of the enormous destruction an earthquake can cause in a heavily populated area. On the morning of September 19th, 1985, a major earthquake struck Mexico City. It killed 10,000 people and injured another 20,000. Hundreds of buildings were destroyed, including homes and stores, hotels and hospitals, and schools and businesses. This multi-level parking garage, center right, collapsed like a house of cards, while some of the neighboring buildings suffered only slight damage. Most earthquakes take place in the Earth's crust, a 5 to 30 mile deep layer of rocks that covers our planet. Cracks in the rocks, called faults, run through the crust. In one type of fault, called a strike-slip fault, the rocks on one side of the fault try to move past the rocks on the other side, causing energy to build up. For years, friction will hold the rocks in place. But finally, like a stretched rubber band, the rocks suddenly snap past each other. The place where this happens is called the focus of an earthquake. From the focus, the energy of the earthquake speeds outward through the surrounding rocks in all directions. The shocks may last for less than a second for a small earthquake, to several minutes for a major one. Weaker shocks, called aftershocks, can follow an earthquake on and off for days or weeks. Sections of the crust have slipped past each other along two strike-slip faults and offset this ridge in Wyoming, left. Sometimes, one side of a fault will slip up over the other. This is what happened along this highway in the Mojave Desert of California, right. This kind of upward movement is called a thrust fault. 4 out of 5 of the world's earthquakes take place along the rim of the Pacific Ocean, a zone called the Pacific Ring of Fire. Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California, Mexico, the west coasts of Central and South America, and the east coasts of New Zealand, the Philippines, Japan, and Russia, Kamchatka, and the Kurils, are all located along the Pacific Ring of Fire. Another major earthquake zone stretches through Italy, Greece, Turkey, and Armenia to the Middle East and into Asia. In the United States, almost half of the earthquakes each year occur in Southern California. In other sections of the United States, earthquakes are rare. Why do most earthquakes in the United States occur in California? The answer lies deep within Earth. Our planet's solid rocky crust floats on the mantle, a 1,800-mile thick layer of very hot and dense rock that slowly churns around like a huge pot of boiling soup in very slow motion. The slowly moving mantle carries along the solid crust, which is cracked like an eggshell, into a number of huge pieces called plates. The plates float slowly about on the mantle, up to 4 inches a year. As the plates move, they run into or pull away from each other, producing enormous strains in the rocks along their edges. The United States and Canada are riding on the North American plate, which is slowly moving against the Pacific plate. The colliding plates cause most of the earthquakes along the west coast. But earthquakes can occur anywhere there are stresses in underlying rocks. The San Andreas Fault is the boundary line between the North American and the Pacific plates. It winds 700 miles through Southern California to just north of San Francisco, where it heads west along the floor of the Pacific Ocean. Along the way, it slashes under houses and dams, across deserts and farms, and through towns and cities where more than 20 million people live. Dozens of small to medium-sized earthquakes occur along this fault each year. Scientists think that a huge, deadly earthquake will strike along the San Andreas Fault in the near future. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake was one of the most violent earthquakes ever recorded. It was felt over an area of 375,000 square miles, more than twice the size of California. More than 3,000 people lost their lives in the earthquake and the following fires. This view shows San Francisco in flames hours after the earthquake. The fires alone destroyed 28,000 buildings in the city. This fence was broken and offset 8 feet by the movement of the San Andreas Fault during the 1906 earthquake. Besides the widespread strike slip, side-to-side, motion along the fault, above, there was also vertical movement of as much as 3 feet in some places.